I'm gonna show you how to make the best chocolate cake recipe. I just have to figure out what that is first. I'm gonna try a bunch of different recipes, some that are pretty wacky. Recipe number 3, all mayonnaise. Hopefully by the end of it, we'll have the best chocolate cake recipe ever. There you go. I gotta try some too. I don't think that anyone loved chocolate cake as much as my grandma did. And my dad has been making the same chocolate cake recipe since before I was born. I love it, but it's not the ultimate. The first thing I'm gonna do is bake the cake that my dad always makes. Take some notes, see what I wanna change, see what I like. My dad texted me a photo of the recipe and I just printed it out. This particular recipe calls for coating with flour as well, so I'll do that too. It's kind of nice to spray the bottom even though you're putting something in, because that way it sticks. And it's really important to take all precautionary steps to lining your cake pans, because there's nothing worse than doing all this hard work to make a beautiful, delicious chocolate cake and then it comes out of your pan in pieces. Some things to note about this recipe, or things that I'll be paying attention to: there's no cocoa powder at all in this recipe. It's purely just baking chocolate. There's sour cream, which I'm a big fan of baking with, so I'm excited about that. There's both baking soda and baking powder, and we whip the egg whites. So there's a lot of leavening going on. So the first thing that I'm doing is heating some hot water to boiling, and then I'm gonna pour it over our baking chocolate and our butter to melt it. And then I'll be stirring in vanilla and sugar. That is a big old mound of sugar. Egg yolks. So I just whip these egg whites to stiff peaks, as you can see, and we're gonna fold it into our cake batter. And I'm doing something which is pretty typical when you're incorporating whipped egg whites, which is to add about 1/4 and folding that in before I add the final amount. And that's just to give this batter a lighter texture. If we were to pour the whole thing in, the weight of the batter might deflate a lot of the bubbles. So just gently folding a portion of the egg whites in will help them maintain more air in the long run. She's ready. I've got an oven preheated to 350, and this should take about 30 minutes. At least I'll start tracking it at that point. Moving right along to recipe number 2. The first recipe that I just made is all butter. This recipe is all vegetable oil. This also uses espresso powder, which they say is optional in the recipe, but I want to give it a try because I've heard it helps sort of amplify the chocolate flavors and doesn't necessarily make it taste like coffee at all. We got flour and we got sugar. This recipe calls for Dutch processed cocoa powder. Similar to cocoa powder, but it's been put through a process that takes away a lot of the acidic notes, so it's a much smoother flavor. I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of espresso powder. Now all we need is vanilla, vinegar, vegetable oil, and water. So this is baking at 350 once again for 30 minutes to 35 minutes. Goodbye, cake. All right, well, I think I need to do some dishes because I've exhausted all the bowls, all the measuring cups already. Cake number 1 is potentially ready. So let's just give this one the toothpick test. Looks clean, looks good. So I'm just gonna pop this on the cooling rack, and then we'll turn it out in like maybe 10 minutes when it's a little less hot. Recipe number 3 is all mayonnaise. Well, not all mayonnaise. There are other ingredients, but there are no fats besides the mayonnaise. So we've got all of our dry ingredients here, and then all that's left is just water, mayo, and vanilla. I'm interested that like all of these recipes use vanilla when like, I don't know if it's necessary. I think maybe tomorrow I might try doing it without, just because it's like, maybe vanilla brings out the chocolatey flavor, but maybe it just muddles it. This cake is looking a lot lighter in color than our last 2. We are putting cake number 3 into the oven. This will bake for 25 to 30 minutes in a 350-degree oven. And I am going to flip out our first cake, and I'm going to... Cakes abound. Clean. Recipe number 4 has a very interesting secret ingredient. Shout out to my girl Lauren for sending me this recipe. It is a chocolate mashed potato cake. Never heard of it before, but I'm excited to try it. So we're starting with 2 potatoes. I'm gonna peel them, chop them up, and boil them, and then I'll mash them. And then that will get added to our regular old cake batter. It's funny, it's kind of acting like butter. It integrates pretty easily. All right, this cake bakes for an hour. So I'm gonna pop it in, let it do its thing. All right, so I think our mayo cake's done. I'm gonna pull it out, give it the old toothpick test. Looking nice and clean. We made it to cake number 5. This one I am testing mostly for the inclusion of buttermilk and a 1/4 cup of veggie oil, an egg, and then we're gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon vanilla. We're also adding brewed coffee to this one. 35 minutes in 350. Going in. All right, I'm just gonna give this a quick cleanup. All right. Very excited. The moment I've been waiting for, trying the cakes. We are starting with my family recipe, which I'm about to rip apart and build back up again. Sorry, Dad. The texture is really nice. Really smooth, soft, tender crumb. It's an 8. I want to make it a 10. I'm afraid to go home now. Cake number 2, super dark, and I think that's because of the Dutch processed cocoa. The texture is looking really beautiful. It's like got that really like tacky, sticky top. It's definitely a lot more moist than the first one. So onto the mayo cake, which looks great. It's super dark. I don't taste the mayo, but the cake does have this interesting like mouth flavor. Mouth flavor, it's a very technical term. It's super chocolatey. It reminds me a lot of something I had as a kid. A Hostess cupcake with the little swirls on it. Potato cake. It looks interesting. It's got some weird bumps on the top of it, but it looks nice, even, smooth. Not the best cake I've tasted so far. I do like, and they mentioned this in the recipe, that the top would get a little crunchy. It's nice to have that like little mix of textures. Nothing too special about it. It's nice and light, but it just doesn't have the flavor. I'm glad I don't love this one, because if I had to end up boiling potatoes anytime I wanted to make a chocolate cake, I'd be kind of annoyed. I'd say interesting to try, but not our hero, not our ultimate. Last slice of the day, buttermilk cake. Very chocolatey. This is about what I expect a chocolate cake to be. The salt levels are really good. I wouldn't mind a little bit more chocolate flavor, but in terms of texture, it's pretty great. I'm gonna take the weekend, really think about everything I've learned. I'd say veggie oil's definitely in the running, buttermilk's definitely in the running. I still am not sure about chocolate versus cocoa powder. Got a lot to think about. I will see you on the flip side. Hello, welcome to day 2 of chocolate cake something. I had the whole weekend to think about it, and I have a pretty good start, I think. I really pulled out the 2 favorites, and both of them had buttermilk in them, so I'm definitely gonna try to incorporate that into my recipe. More coffee flavor, I'm gonna try a version that has both espresso powder and hot coffee. I thought that the best textured cake on Friday was our second cake, which had no eggs, so I'm taking the eggs out of my recipe. And as much as I love butter, I'm gonna give it a try with all veggie oil, and then I'll do a version that's part butter and veggie oil and see which one we like better. Day 2, number 1, going in. Wish it luck, cross your fingers. Number 2, I'm doing a combination of vegetable oil and butter. So I'm doing 3 tablespoons veggie oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. Into the oven. Test number 2. Let's keep making cakes. Cake number 3. Back to the original formula that I had for cake number 1, but I'm trading out all of the white sugar for brown sugar. Brown sugar tends to add a little moisture to baked goods, and I want to see if maybe the flavor and the moisture that brown sugar brings would pair nicely with the chocolate cake. I don't know if you remember the very first recipe, but we coated the inside of the pan with flour. I'm gonna try doing the same, but with cocoa powder, just to double up on the flavor. See how we like that? Popping it into the oven. Right below our first cake that's almost done. And see you in a few. Dish time. Oh, gotta check the cake. Sorry. So I have not tried these cakes yet. I'm very excited.
That one is my favorite just based on looks alone.
Really?
Yes.
It looks like denser than...
Yes, it does. It looks fudgier.
Yeah.
It looks so oily, like...
But I like the darkness of the third one. I did a lot of espresso powder in that one too. And I'm not tasting it.
I taste it.
You do?
I don't know if I like the texture as much as I thought I was going to.
Really?
It might be too much.
Too soft.
Too dense, maybe verging gummy.
Is this eventually going to have buttercream or frosting? Or
It's gonna have,
something?
a whipped ganache.
Then I would not like that texture with even more chocolate.
Too
on it.
fudgy.
Yeah, like
Okay.
a whipped cream would be amazing.
Yeah.
But more chocolate is too fudge.
Number
On to
2.
the next. It has a nice bounce. It's nicely aerated. It has a really nice crumb.
It seems less chocolatey.
I'm not a fan. It tastes like a watered down version of that one, both in terms of moistness and flavor.
Interesting.
So, Dutch processed versus Hershey's unsweetened. So, and the other difference between these two is this is like basically half butter, half vegetable oil, and this is just vegetable oil.
I'm a vegetable oil kind of girl, so very clean break.
Doesn't it feel less sweet than the other two?
That might be my favorite one so far.
Really?
And I think the texture is perfect.
Yes.
It's not gummy, it's not gluey, but it's still very moist in your mouth.
So what were the difference?
So the difference between these two is this is all brown sugar, and this is all white sugar.
Brown sugar.
Okay.
Always does the trick.
So if we like this,
Yes.
do we think that 100% brown sugar is the way to go?
Well, the texture in this is 10 times nicer than the texture in this one.
So I'm gonna try to perfect the method for this one.
I like it.
Excited.
I know.
Oh my God. That taste test was super helpful. Really excited, hoping I might just have one more test before the final bake. Trying a few different things on this last one. Still using all brown sugar, like the gals liked, but I am gonna try not doing any cocoa powder in the pan just to see what the difference is. I do really like the way the cake sort of baked up the pan, and it was easy to take out. So we might keep it in, but I didn't taste it at all, so I don't want to waste cocoa powder on that if it's not worth it. And then I'm going to do a tightly packed 3/4 cup instead of a loosely packed 1 cup. And I'm going to add the brown sugar to the wet ingredients, see if the integration's a little bit better there. I had it in my head that chocolate cake doesn't need vanilla, but I feel like I should probably test it with just to make sure. This is gonna go in the oven for 35 minutes. Please be good. This better work. We don't have time for another test. I guess I'll clean again. Bye. All right. Trying our, I don't even know what number test this is at this point. We did 5 yesterday, 3, 8, 9. Our 9th cake. It looks good. It baked totally right. Adding the brown sugar in with the wet ingredients was totally fine. Texture looks nice. It's good. I think I can taste the vanilla, and I'm not a fan. I think I'm gonna leave it out. It gives me a little bit too much of a like birthday cakey vibe. It's not quite as sweet as I want it. So I think we're gonna go back to a cup of brown sugar. All right, okay. Was there anything else I tested that I need to think about? Oh, came out of the pan just fine without the cocoa powder, so I think I can leave that out. I think we're ready. I think we're ready to make our final cakes. I'm so excited. 350, 35 minutes, and we can frost these babes. All right. Tomorrow we'll make the frosting, put it all together. It's gonna be awesome. See you then. Day 3 of cake, let's talk frosting. Buttercream is great. It can be really sweet. And I want a frosting for my chocolate cake that's not too sweet, still has a lot of chocolatey flavor. And I love ganache, but you can't really frost an entire cake with ganache because it's very thin. So I'm gonna make a whipped ganache, and I'm going to add in some cream cheese to make it a little tangy, a little less sweet. I think it's gonna be really good. So the first step is to make a ganache. So all we need is chocolate chips and heavy cream. If you want like a really thin ganache, then you would have more heavy cream, and if you want a thicker, more spreadable ganache, then more chocolate. But for this recipe, we're doing an equal amount of both. So I'm just gonna put it over like a medium flame, and as soon as we start seeing bubbles forming around the edge of the cream, we know it's hot and we can put it in on top of our chocolate. Now we just have to wait a few minutes for the chocolate to melt. I'm just gonna slowly, gently stir it. It's still a little bit warm though, and I want it to be room temperature when I whip it. So I am just going to set it aside. It should only take like 30 minutes or so to come to room temp, and then we can make our frosting. To start, we are just gonna whip our cream cheese by itself, and that is because cream cheese is notoriously clumpy. So if you mix it in with anything else, it'll never really get smooth, which is infuriating if you're trying to make a nice, beautiful, luxurious, velvety frosting and then you've got little specks of white. It's the most frustrating thing ever. This is room temperature. It's looking nice and whipped. And now we're adding just 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. And while I'm mixing this, I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt just to balance out the flavors. I made the ganache in a measuring cup because it's the perfect vessel for me to slowly stream it into my cream cheese. To start, I'm just gonna add maybe like a 1/4 cup just to get things going, make sure everything's fully incorporated, no lumps, and then we can start slowly adding the ganache and whipping it with the cream cheese. This is looking really good. It's doubling in volume almost because of the cream. We're just getting it nice and whipped, almost like you would a whipped cream. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge and let it stiffen just a little bit, let that cream cheese and the chocolate sort of harden up. See you in a few. While we're waiting for our frosting to cool, we're just gonna trim the dome off of our cakes. This isn't necessary, but if you want your cake to stand straight and be even, then you do have to level them off. That doesn't mean it has to go to waste. I mean, we can still eat it. We are just gonna take the domed portion off. So if you can see, actually, something that makes it really easy to do this is the line where it was still touching the cake pan. So we know that that's gonna be even all the way around, so we can kind of use that as a guide. That being said, I still am a little cautious when I'm cutting, and I usually start a little bit higher than I know I'm gonna finish. You can take more off, but you cannot add back on once you've taken it off. So I've got a nice big serrated knife. You want one that is at least the length of your cake. And I'm just gonna I'll start high just to start. I'm just trying to keep an eye on both sides to make sure I'm cutting evenly. So I can take this whole piece off, and I have a bowl here that I'm just saving all the scraps in. As you can see, pretty close to the edge right there, but need to do some more trimming on this side. See, I've got a bit of a border still. So I'm just gonna go back in with my knife, and just as I go, I can just toss these scraps. Oh, you won?
Let's go.
There you go. I gotta try some too.
Ooh.
It's a good cake.
So we got our icing.
It's been chilling for like 30 minutes. It's a bit thicker now. It's had a chance to cool. You can see it's kind of holding on to those peaks, which is what we want. I'm, again, not a huge frosting person, so I think an even layer in the center and an even layer on top is the perfect amount to go with the cake. To start, we're just gonna add a dab of frosting right in the center, and I'm just gonna spread it out a bit. And this is just like a little bit of glue to keep our cake from sliding around while we're decorating it. And then what I like to do when I'm adding my frosting is just to put a big dollop in the middle and kind of move it out from there to get to the edges. And then I have my handy dandy offset spatula, your best friend for cake decorating. Second layer on top. Since we have this like perfect smooth layer that was our bottom, I'm just gonna use that as our top. So I will flip this upside down and then gently, looks pretty even to me. I think we're good. So I'm pretty much done. I'm just putting some final swooshes on top. There's a few different ways you can style your cake, but there's something about the nice little peaks that are sort of like reminiscent of a diner cake that has the glass case over it. You know, that's always like the most inviting cake to me. And something I like to do is just do like a sort of S shape and lift my spatula. Why not just add one more chocolatey element to our super chocolatey cake? Well, doesn't that look just like the most inviting chocolate cake you've ever seen? I am so excited to cut into it. It's so good. I love chocolate cake. Cakes are super chocolatey, super moist. Frosting is like very light, but also very chocolatey. Fork Rochelles. Oh, I'm so good. We did it. I'm sharing the cake because I have to. Social norms. And bringing. I can't wait to share my chocolate cake with you guys. This is my perfect chocolate cake that I've been developing for 3 days, and I hope you guys like it. Please let me know what you think.
If you insist. Do you need a fork?
Yes, please. Thank you.
The curls on top are a nice artistic
The
touch.
frosting's
Thank
very
you.
soft.
This is
It's quiet.
Is there cream cheese in the frosting?
There is.
It's got a nice tang.
Thank
and
you.
And it's like fluffier than it looked.
It's actually a whipped ganache, and then I whipped cream cheese into that because I was like, it's delish. We
That
need some
is-
cream cheese.
That's the best chocolate frosting I think I've ever had.
Wow, Mackenzie.
Holy moly.
Your check's in the mail.
It's the best one I've ever had too.
Oh, well, I can't wait for my dad to try this. That's all I have to say about it.
I'm just
Thank
concerned
you.
there's chocolate in my tea.